We're back now with some more web extras with our conversation with retired General Dennis Reimer. Let's talk a little bit more about what you did after the military. You retired, but you did some stuff on tourism. So explain to me what that was about.
Well, after I retired, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And quite frankly, I didn't have time to think about that very much when I was Chief of Staff of the Army. I had all I could handle in that particular job, so I didn't have a lot of free time to think about what's the next career look like. And I really took time to sort of clear with the Army, to do an oral history and to get that done while it was still fresh on my mind, and just to kind of police up some of the things that I had to do in terms of out processing from the Army. But as I went through the job search and tried to figure out what I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted to do something that was important. And to me, that was the most important criteria. I wanted something that I believed in and something I thought was important. One of the things that I did is I came back and I talked to Oklahoma State University. They asked me to come down and talk about their military research program. I did that, but I said, I'm just not really suited for that. That's not the thing that I do. And in the process of that, they asked me to go by and see Governor Keating. And I said I would love to do that because I'd known Governor Keating before and really had great respect for the way he handled the Murrah building bombing and the leadership he showed at that time. So I went in there and he asked me the same question, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I really don't know. I said, I'm still trying to find out what is best for me. And he said, well, why don't you come back and help us get the Memorial Institute for Prevention of Terrorism off the ground. And I thought about that for a while, and I said, you know, I've testified in front of Congress that terrorism is a big threat that we face now, and this was in 1999. And so, long story made short, I decided to do that, and I came back, and I was one of the first 5 people to be a part of that portion of the National Memorial.
Just sitting on boards like a lot of retired generals do just wasn't going to interest you at all.
I did some sitting on boards, and I primarily focused on those companies that had missions that I thought were worth supporting. But I did that. I sit on only one board now, and that's Mutual of America, and I sit on that board because it's a wonderful company with a wonderful board, and I just want to be a part of that organization.
Knowing what you know now, what you've lived through, would you have done it all over again?
Oh, absolutely. I think I was probably the luckiest person in the world in lots of ways, and particularly having come from a family that had no military experience. I mean, my family, I grew up in the Mennonite religion, and it's a pacifist religion. So there wasn't a lot of people who had gone into the military. In my family, there was none, except that I had one uncle who had gone in the Korean War as a conscientious objector. But be able to go from that background, and it was a wonderful background of growing up in Medford, Oklahoma, but being able to go from that to what I did in the military was just a wonderful experience for me. I have no regrets about that at all, and I would definitely do it again. Now, there's some things along the way that I would do probably differently. I mean, I've learned from mistakes, but overall, I have no regrets on that whatsoever.
You've been out of it for a while, but you know the internal workings of the military. You know how it thinks and how it acts and how it responds. With the situations that are going on today in the world that we're dealing with Iran, and now Russia's coming back onto the picture again, without having to clear your comments with anyone, are we doing the right things, or should we have done the Iran a little? Should we have negotiated a little stronger with Iran? Should we be negotiating with Putin, or should we just not negotiate with him?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, and I was asked this question at the luncheon today, and my answer was basically that this is a very complex and dangerous world. And it's complex from the standpoint of what's going on in the Middle East. I think there's a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, between the Sunni and the Shia religion that's taking place over there. The sides are difficult to understand and who's on whose side, and they switch from time to time. So that's a really complex issue that we're dealing with. Are we dealing with it properly? I guess I would say, and I'm out of the business of doing this, but I've always felt like you need a coherent strategy, in anything you do, and you need a coherent strategy in the Middle East. There may be that coherent strategy, I just don't know it. But I think you have to start from that and say, here's what we want to do, and then figure out who your friends are, who your enemies are. And I think right now you've got a choice. Do we take Assad out of Syria early, or do we destroy ISIS? I don't think you can do both simultaneously right now, given all the other stuff that's happening on the fringe. So are we doing it right? I'm not sure. I think it's too complex, and I don't know the answer to that. Should we worry about Putin? I think we should, because I think what Putin sees is a vacuum that's been created as we sort of withdrawn from the center stage. It's not that we're not as capable a military. We are capable of military. But I think the point that's being made is that the United States public is war weary. And the point I make is we may be war weary, but we haven't seen the end of war. So it's sort of a mixed bag for me. These are tough decisions, and I don't want to sit as a grandstand quarterback and question everybody. I know how difficult that is. Do I think we should have negotiated harder with Iran? I absolutely do. But now we've got an agreement, and now we've got to focus on making sure that the principles of that agreement are adhered to. And that's, I think, where we need to be.
Well, you served in the Middle East because of the first war we had.
Right.
Is there a win for us? Can we win this thing? Or is it going to be constantly ongoing, just another version of what we're dealing with now?
I think there are two answers to that, Royal. Militarily, we can win. We could defeat ISIS. But if you're going to secure the peace over there, that takes a lot longer. And then you have to get into the root cause of that insurgency that's going on over there, that terrorism that's taking place. That takes a long time. I'm not sure the American public have the patience to do that, because it would be, in my mind, a commitment, a multi-year commitment, maybe a multi-decade commitment in order to do that. And I'm not sure that we can do it, but I think what we can do is to find allies and friends over there that we can work with, so we're not totally committed over there. I don't think leaving the American troops there for a long period of time is the right thing to do. But I think you've got to have American troops, boots on the ground, involved in order to secure that peace that's needed, and then be able to work in that peaceful environment.
Boots on the ground is in the role of advisors?
I think it's going to take more than advisors. Understand, I come from the Army, and that's what the Army does, is that they provide stability to other nations, and in my mind, that takes Army boots on the ground to do it. I think the nation has a real problem with that, and no boots on the ground has been a rallying cry for those that don't want to use the military force. I think it's a high hurdle to get over, but I think eventually we're going to have to get over that, because I don't think we can win without putting boots on the ground.
When you served as Chief of Staff, you were under the first Bush.
No, I was really as Chief of Staff, I was really under President Clinton.
Okay.
And President Bush was the president when we did Operation Desert Storm, and I was the operations officer for the Army.
So what was it like serving Clinton?
Well, President Clinton is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And when he focused on the military, I mean, it was just like a laser beam. He was involved in it, and no matter what was happening around him, he tuned all of that out, and he also was able to understand very detailed operation. So intellect was a great strength of his. He's also one of those people that's really charismatic. I mean, when he walks in the room, he really just sucks out the oxygen in the room. I mean, he's that charismatic. And I think the support that he provided people of Oklahoma City during the Mural Building bombing. I think that was very well done, and I think that was very sincere on his part. And I think he's come back for numerous 5-year ceremonies in remembrance of what took place there. So just like all of us, he's a complex individual, but he's very intellectual and he's very charismatic.
The big organization here, because you came in not only for Constitution Day, but to support the Gold program, boots back on this hill because of the Oklahoma Military Association that we have here tied to this university. That OMA group of men who served not only during school, but went on to serve. I mean, some very famous guys came through there. The guy who wrote the surrender papers for Japan on the Missouri. I mean, it seems to be that there's every little pocket we have great Oklahomans coming through, and yet we don't have the military academy back on campus, but we have boots on the ground. The Guardsmen mean a lot to the nation's military, does it not? I mean, without them, we couldn't do much, right?
No, I think that's true. I think the Guard forces around the United States are very important. They represent the people in their area, and they do it very good. You know, I would also say that they really deserve a lot of credit for what they've done in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I know Oklahoma sent a number of soldiers, a number of units over there to fight. And the Army and the nation put about $200 billion into improving the readiness of the Guard forces overall during that 10-year period. And I hope we will not waste that investment, and we have to figure out a way that we can use the Guard or continue to use the Guard to help in these issues that we face around the world. But at the same time, I think we've got to be careful that we don't overuse the Guard. I think the Gold program that you have here at Rogers State University is absolutely the right way to go. I mean, if you can take these people and bring them in and help educate them and prepare them for leadership positions in the Guard, that's great. And you absolutely need the Guard to protect the homeland. You absolutely need the Guard to respond to natural disasters, and nobody does it better than them. So yes, they are very important.
Well, thanks for being with us today, General. I appreciate it very much.
Well, it was fun to be with you. Thank you very much.
You bet.